Well, let's get the latest then on the situation on the ground in Ukraine from retired Air Vice Marshal Sean Bell. And Sean, the big question here is why has Russia then decided to pull out of this grain deal?
Yeah, I think it's worth providing a bit of context to this. So Ukraine is a bit of a breadbasket for the rest of the world, and grain exports are particularly important for out of Odessa. But of course, Ukraine is also paranoid that Russia will do an amphibious attack into Odessa as well. So this deal was always incredibly fragile. On Saturday, the Russians reported a massive attack against its Black Sea fleet out of Sevastopol. Involved 7 maritime unmanned vehicles and 9 unmanned air vehicles. We've got some footage here that's been shared by Ukrainian social media. The reality of which Sky has not been able to validate this as yet. Russian claims that all of the unmanned vehicles, air and maritime, were destroyed, but it also admits that there was some minor damage to its frigate. It's worth putting into context that the Russians also said there was minor damage to the Moskva some months back, when, of course, a couple of days later, that vessel was sunk. But returning to the grain deal itself, that was always due to be reviewed in November, but overnight, Russia's said it's pulling out of it straight away now because it's claimed it can't guarantee the security and safety of the civilian ships transporting the grain out of Odessa. Russia's also claimed that this act against Sevastopol was a terrorist act. From a point of fact, the Russian military vessels have been involved in an act of war with Ukraine. That makes them completely legitimate vessels. And if they were the Grigorovich class of frigate, which is a cruise missile frigate, then Ukraine's been suffering for many days and weeks of attacks of cruise missiles, absolutely legitimate target. From a Ukraine perspective, most of the drones, all the drones look as if they were shot down, maybe not militarily significant, but strategically really important for Ukraine to demonstrate it can attack a long way away from the front line. And from the West perspective, it's really keen Ukraine doesn't attack Russian soil. But of course, Crimea is absolutely fair game.
And what's the wider situation then on the ground looking like?
Well, if we, again, we're focused on Bakhmut because around most of the country at the moment, Russian forces seem to be digging in for the winter. They're bringing all of these recruits in. But around Bakhmut, lots of really intensive fighting still going on. Lots of the reservists being brought in, huge casualties on the Russian side. And they are making progress, but it's about 100 metres a day, which is woeful from a military perspective. The Wagner group, remember that mercenary group, they're the ones who are leading here. They normally recruit high-quality people, ex-military. Widespread reports at the moment that they're actually recruiting convicts and those with underlying health conditions like HIV and hepatitis C. Really evident that they're focusing on quantity, not quality at the moment.
And just bring us up to date then with the latest that's happening around the Kherson region, some claims coming in from Russia.
Yeah, Kherson's really important strategically because if Russia does pull out of it, it's a major setback for Russia. We've been trying to report on what's happening. We've seen heavy weapons come east, so we thought that was a precursor for withdrawal. Then we've watched Russia push people in. The honest answer, we don't know exactly what's going. But really interesting news that's come out overnight, that the Russian 18th century statesman, Prince Gregory Potemkin, who was linked to Russian conquests of Ukrainian lands in the 18th century, his remains were in Kherson Cathedral. Apparently, they've been taken out of that cathedral and taken back to Russia. Now, given Putin's fascination with the history of the Soviet Union, this appears particularly symbolic. And from a military perspective, why would you take out the remains if you intended to stay in Kherson for the long term?
That is the key question there. Very interesting development there. Sean, thank you very much indeed. It's Sean Bell there.